Today we join 10 million Girl Scouts and Girl Guides around the world in 152 countries as our sister Girl Scouts and Girl Guides. And with that in mind, we'd like to start our Girl Scout Thinking Day program. First of all, thanking Betsy Connell, our Director of Program for the Council, and all she has done to facilitate today. She is on the call with us. This is a webinar, by the way. There's Betsy. So it's a presentation feature, so there's no audio or video on the participants' part today. However, many of you have already found the chat button, and I think there's also a Q&A button. If you have a question as Barbara's speaking today, please register your questions and we will get to them as Barbara gets through her presentation. So we're looking for those and would welcome any questions coming. Our speaker today is Barbara Parkinson. Barbara is a lifetime member in Girl Scouting, and what a lifetime it's been. She began Girl Scouting in 1950 in Salt Lake City, Utah, where she registered, I believe, as a brownie. Is that right, Barbara? And has traveled to a number of places throughout the United States in her school years, but as an adult has traveled internationally and lived internationally, and that's a great part of her story as well. This past May, the High Award ceremony awarded Barbara her 70-year Girl Scout pin. She has maintained 70 years of membership in Girl Scouting. She's also been a participant in a number of committees, both in Ohio, her adult home state. I'm not sure she's got a home state. She's been a rover for so many years, but also in our council as well. I am now very proud to turn the program over to our speaker, Barbara Parkinson. Barbara?
Okay, is it just the picture? Provido por mi honor, hacer cuenta por Dios y la patria donde vivo, y la patria donde viva. Ayudar a la prima en todas las circunstancias y obedecer la ley de la guía. In 1950, my mother enrolled me in a Brownie Girl Scout troop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I have been a Girl Scout ever since. I had at that time, we once upon a time had membership cards. And the membership cards were given out every year. And eventually, and at that time, memberships were a year apart. And eventually they got rid of those and it became a yearly membership so that everybody became a member at the same time every year. And eventually that disappeared and we no longer had the membership cards, although I still have all but one of mine from the days when I was able to boast of being a pin. In 1965, and I was in a Girl Scout troop. We moved every 9 months or so, and I always was in a Girl Scout troop. And we moved, as I said, about every 9 months or so because of my father's job. In 1965, years later, I moved to Chile. My husband was the first staff astronomer of the Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory. And it was there that I met Barbara Lowry, who was the headmistress to the Colegio Inglés, which meant the English school. It was a private school in La Serena, if you can see it right there. And she had been from England, and so she knew all about Girl Scouts from England. And when I moved down there and we met, she found out I was a Girl Scout and asked me to start the first Girl Scout troop in the northern part of Chile. There were some troops down in Santiago, which is the capital of Chile. To become a to get my uniform, I received through her. We worked on deciding what I was going to join, because there were two different kinds of scouting. There was the Girl Guides de Chile. There was also the Girl Guides and the Boy Scouts that were a combination troop. And we chose to belong just to the Girl Guides at that time. And I don't know when the two of them joined together to become both the Girl Guides and also the Scouts, which was the Boy Scouts. But anyway, to become a Girl Scout, I had to, I'm sorry, my notes here. My uniform was on a sheet of paper about 4 or 5 lines. It described the material that the uniform was, and also in 2 or 3 lines described how one would make the uniform, which any person who was a seamstress then made it from those scraps, from those directions. But to become a leader, I had to go to Santiago from La Serena and give my law and the promise in front of the national board. Now, this distance doesn't look like very far between La Serena and Santiago. That was a 17-hour drive by car along the Panamericano. And there I went to the national board, and in the very best Spanish that I had memorized in accent, I gave my law and promise before the national board and received my pin, which then made me an official Girl Scout guide in Chile. And there's the pin that I was given, which I still have. And you notice how much alike it still was of many of the pins we had throughout my living part of Chile. It was a wonderful experience having this doing this law and promise in front of the national board. And when I was finished, I turned around and traveled back home, all the miles back to that. The same thing was true with the girls' uniforms. It was on a small sheet of paper, and it described the uniform and the kind of material that we bought, and then gave to the modelista, the person who made the uniform from the directions. And it was interesting that they were so good that everybody's uniform looked alike. The Girl Scouts of Las Guías and Scouts of Chile, we met twice a month, the troop that I had. And in our troop meetings, all the girls had their uniforms. We met twice a month, as I remember. And at our meetings, we did songs. We always did the promise and law to start. We had songs, we had crafts, and I'm not a craft person. And we did plays and made out acting. We did have 2 camping trips. Now, the camping trips were very interesting because with that, the Girl Scouts of Chile had power like you wouldn't believe. Our school met for 5.5 days. So when are we going to have a camping trip? We have to have some time available. So I went to Barbara and asked her about the time that we could have for our camping trip. And she informed me that anytime we wanted to go camping, she would close the school for the weekend. And once the other students knew about this, they would come to me, especially before a weekend of an extended program, and ask if the Girl Scouts were going to have a go camping. And if we were, yay! School was going to be closed for the weekend. If we weren't, they were going to have school. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So that was quite interesting to always have the power to close the school with the permission of the headmistress. By the way, the Colegio Inglés was a private school, and was the students in that school. As I said, it was a private school, but the main object was to speak English, to learn English if they didn't already know it. And as a private school, they were getting ready to be able to attend the various schools and so forth where they would participate in the English language. And so it was quite something there. Did I say some of the 2 times we went on a camping trip, they were in their uniforms, and different families volunteered and had sort of like we had like tents that they had from home, which was what the girls would had for sleeping. For eating, we didn't have anything like grills or anything, but we cooked all of our meals that required cooking over hot stones. And they would be large stones that would be heated up. And then we just cooked on the hot stones. And that was just part of just the way it was. Came the time when I wanted to know about flag ceremonies. Here in the United States, we all know about flag ceremonies and the proper way in which to display the flag. Well, I did not know what the flag ceremony in Chile was, but this is the Chilean flag. And so I made arrangements to have a meeting with the comandante in the area, which would be like the head of the military constabulary for the Crico Norte, which is where I lived, to learn about flag etiquette. So, as I said, I made arrangements with the military commander and went to I went to their locale one day to learn about what the flag ceremony would be like. Well, it turned out there wasn't any. He invited me to go see them when they took the flag down, and they just took it down and put it in a bundle and put it under their arm and walked away. But I had a very interesting conversation and meeting with the commandante, and I could tell that he enjoyed talking to me. One of the things was I was the foreigner in the area. And so and as the foreigner, I was able to talk to and join a lot of different meetings. As a foreigner, I could attend a lot of places and go a lot of places that normally women could not attend, but I could because I was a foreigner. I had a very good friend, a Chilean friend, who was also very honest, who would, at times when I wanted to do something, she would tell me, yes, you can do that as a woman. Or, no, you cannot do that because you are a woman. Many of the things I could not do as a woman, but she could not because she was Chilean. I could because I was a foreigner. If I was allowed to get away with something as a foreigner, I took advantage of it and I went so that I could experience as much as I could of Chile, of the women, of the women of the various things. In 1966, I think it was their first national convention of the Girl Guides de Chile, which I decided to attend. And I drove down to Santiago, got my car parked, and went and joined the line to register. Now, when I went to register, no one could tell that I was a foreigner. Not until I opened my mouth and said something. At that point, they all knew, everyone around me knew I was a foreigner. And immediately made friends with, it was 5 or 6 women that were in line. And we got along very well. And immediately they understood my Spanish, which was very important, because if you didn't pay attention to what I was saying, you wouldn't understand me. My accent, the words I used, which were sometimes right, sometimes wrong, all made a big difference. But anyway, so at this national convention, I met this group of women, and as we stood in line and then found the seats to attend the convention, the president frequently would look over at me and ask me if I was understanding the proceedings. Now, I had no problems understanding Spanish by that time. They might have had trouble understanding me, but I understood them. So anyway, she kept asking me if I understood, and eventually she stopped asking because I kept saying, yes, I understood what was going on. Now, the second day of the proceedings, we got into one of the many of the discussions. And one of the things on the table was, we're going to change the uniform. We're going to design a new uniform to be carried. Have we ever heard of such a thing? So we decided to look at the uniform. And now the big discussion, what do we do with all the uniforms that people already have? And I listened to the discussion, the pros and cons. And finally, I raised my hand. And in my very best Spanish, in the very best accent, I proposed that once a uniform, it's always a uniform. Now, where did I get that idea from? I did not tell them where I got it from, but I presented it, and there was a sea of blank faces. My new friends, one of them immediately stood up and translated my Spanish into Spanish with the accent and the words that were proper to use to suggest what I was suggesting of this. Once it's a uniform, it will always stay a uniform and be official. That took immediately they liked that idea, and it passed. And that is my one legacy that I gave to the Chilean Girl Scouts. And as a side thing, several years later, when I was down there, they knew who I was when I visited the country, because they knew about the woman who had suggested that once a uniform, always a uniform, and it passed. So I was remembered for that, and they did remember me several years after I had left the country. let's see. As years went by, I started to travel more, and I'm just sorry I didn't travel earlier, but I would make arrangements to visit the countries. I did a total of 3 of them. The first one I did was in Guatemala. I'm not sure I have that date. Oh, now I don't remember the date, but anyway, I did visit. I was in Guatemala and made arrangements to go to visit the national headquarters for the Guatemalan Girl Scouts and enjoyed it very much. I had taken with me some gifts to give to the Guatemalan Girl Scouts, which was a couple of boxes of Girl Scout cookies, council patches, and some songbooks. Later, when I was doing more traveling and had a chance to do more, which, by the way, it was just 2 years or 3 years ago, that I visited both the Argentine Girl Scouts and, once again, the Chilean Girl Scouts. But I always took gifts with me. And now, of course, it was possible to talk to them and make arrangements for visits because of the internet and being able to contact them. And it was very easy to do so because in my very early visits, that was not an option. So doing my internet, I made arrangements in terms of contacting the Chilean Girl Scouts and the Argentine Girl Scouts to see about visiting them and to go. For the hotels that I was at, I could either make arrangements to visit by taxi, or the hotel I was at in Argentina was fortunate. I was exactly 4 doors away from their national headquarters, so that made it easy for me to get there and back. I didn't have to make special arrangements of finding someone who would arrange for the taxi for me and to be able to go by taxi. And in all the occasions, both Guatemala, Argentina, and Chile, I had very interesting visits, got to talk to staff members. We talked about their local Girl Scouts, some of the things that they did. And of course, I always had the gifts of Girl Scout cookies, council patches, or whatever council I was in at that time. And usually a few other patches and a few other scouts. And then in each of those countries, I would make arrangements and would visit their shop and buy souvenirs, their patches, and other things that they had that I could bring back as gifts, souvenirs for myself and gifts. In the different countries, they all had activities that were centered around and this, by the way, this on the thing. Years later, they no longer had the Girl Scouts of Chile, that's Guías de Chile. They went back to having the combination, both the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. So it became the Guías y Scouts de Chile. And that is what they had for a number of years. And it's just the way that they have it. But you notice that how similar the pins are, showing the trefoil, the compass needle, the flags, and the 2 stars for the promise and the laws, and the compass needle. All of those are important and part of our world pin. The other thing that I did was in Scouts was I had an opportunity to, in my earlier days, to attend programs at 2 of the world centers, and the other 2 world centers just visited for the day. So I have been to the 4 world centers, and I don't know that I'll ever have a chance to visit the 5th one that is being established in Africa. But I have done the other 4 world centers, which I'm very proud and pleased about. The programs that the Scouts use are based on the world centers, and especially talking about the activity packs and talking about violence against girls and women. And it's very active on that. In 2005 is when I was in Guatemala. I don't know what else I have that would be different. Is there anything that, if there's any questions, or Joan, is there anything that I was going to talk about that I forgot when we talked earlier?
How about the world centers? Was there a program that you especially enjoyed, an adult program maybe that?
Yeah, the 2 programs that I attended, each were a week or so. One was in India and one was in Mexico. The one in India learned a lot about the Girl Scouts in India and just information about their program and just about the Indian Girl Scouts. And it was fascinating, the things we learned. One of the interesting things I learned was how to cross the street. Now, you may not think that's much, but when you have lanes that are something like 8 or 10 lanes across, and there's no sidewalks or things to cross, you just have to know how. We learned to take, usually 2 by 2, a very deep breath, say, are you ready? And at the slightest the slightest break in traffic, we started across. Because what you do down there to cross the thing, you don't look right or left. You just go straight across, and you do not look at the traffic. They will look at you because the drivers of the vehicles have already identified you, the speed and the direction that you're traveling across the traffic, and they will avoid you. If you stop or try to change direction or speed, you can risk getting hit because the drivers don't know what you're going to do anymore. And they also had just a lot of other interesting things in India, because the program that I attended was one on the introduction to Indian Girl Scouts. And so we learned a lot just about India and its Girl Scouts, and just a lot of very neat things that we learned to cover and so forth. And in Mexico, I had visited Mexico years earlier, just for the day. And actually, to get to Mexico at that time was before they were current the way they are. But what they did was, what I had to do was, I went down planning to visit the Mexican Girl Scouts, planning to visit Nuestra Cabana, not knowing if I could get in or not, because I was there the week that they were having their national program, their national meeting of the World Guide. So I got down there, made arrangements to stay in the National Hostel. So the day I went down, got up, got dressed, and walked down to the end of the main road, which is where a lot of the main traffic was, and looked for someone that I could talk to and just ask if they could tell me what bus I was to take, because I knew I had to take a bus to the subway. And this very nice woman told me she was going that way and just to follow her. So I did. So I went by bus to the subway, got off at the subway and took the subway, which took me the subway was quite a distance, and I had to take the subway, which, I'm sorry, I can't think of the words I want. Anyway, I took the subway and had to take it through 2 changes. As I remember, it was 2 changes to take the subway. And each time, both when I first got on it and so forth, I paid careful attention to where I was going, because I knew I was going to come back by myself and needed to make sure I knew where to get off and take the subway back to the roads where I was taking. So took the subway, took the 2 subways, and then this very nice woman told me, she said, well, this is the road you're going to take. You're going to take the subway now to the end of the route. And from there, I had to take the subway to the end. And from there, I would be taking, I'm sorry, I can't think of the words I want. So I watched her get across the tracks and get on the subway going back the way we had come. I don't know how far away she went out of her way, but I think she went all the way and took me, made sure I got to the end and back to where I started from, which I thought was very nice of her. And so anyway, I took the subway, the 2 different subways, to the end of the line, where I then got on a cross-country bus. And I took that bus to wherever I had to go. And it happened to be really an end of a line where I got off and then went to try to get the bus that would take me into Santiago. And with that, the bus trip was, I'm sorry, I took the bus went to the end of the line where I got off. Oh, and then I had to get a taxi, which took me to Nuestra Cabana, because I had enough of the instructions to get there. And in doing so, I ended up with the end of another line and was taken to this building and this area that had, it was at the, I'm sorry, it was at the,
You were unsure of being able to enter because they were having their
Right.
national convention.
Thank you. Yes, they were having their national, the world guides were having their national meeting. And so I didn't know if I could get in or not to this, to visit Nuestra Cabana. So I asked the taxi cab driver to wait, went over, knocked on the door, and was met by a very nice lady who told me, yes, I could come in and take a look around. So I went back, paid off the taxi cab driver, and then went off. And this very nice lady gave me one of the girl guides to show me around, because they used national girls from the national, they gave me girls that then were helped. They helped at the national workshop, running errands for the leader, for the adults, etc. But she told this young lady to make sure that I saw everything that was possible to see at the National Center, and went around and saw everything, which, by the way, which I saw just a couple years ago, is still, much of it was the same that I had remembered from all those years ago. But she gave it to me, and then at the end she asked she said, would I assume that you would like to buy some souvenirs? If you do, I will have the shop opened for you. So I got a bunch of souvenirs from the shop in Santiago. And they apologized for not being able to do more with me, but they had already had plans they had for a meal that night at their meeting. it turned out the woman who had made all these arrangements was the national president of WAGs. So it was very interesting. And then when I was finished, they saw that I got a taxi that took me back to the bus stop. And then so I could repeat the whole visit going back the way. It was a wonderful time. But it was just absolutely wonderful being able to visit at that time, and the friendliness. Again, it was Girl Scouts meeting Girl Scouts. I can't think of anything else that I had said before. And I'm sorry, I'm not speaking clearly. Can you remember anything else, Joan, that I had said?
I think that pretty much sums up your trip.
The visits that I
We
had.
do have, I was going to say, we do have a couple of questions in the chat when you're ready to get to those. And
Okay.
a couple of congratulations on great stories. So,
But I'll tell you, being able to do this, and I would highly, highly, highly recommend anybody who has a chance to visit any of the road centers or any of the others to do so. And in doing so, to make arrangements nowadays with the internet available, of making arrangements ahead of time to visit. I would recommend taking gifts, like a couple boxes of Girl Scout cookies, and watching the weather. If it's very hot weather, forget the chocolate. But taking gifts, that plus any of the patches that might be council patches or anything else that might represent the Girl Scout councils where one comes from. It's a wonderful experience. Everywhere I went, it was just wonderful people that I met. It's very friendly, very helpful. It was just wonderful. Okay, questions? You said you had a couple of questions, somebody?
yes. So the first question is, it's from Milan, and she's asking, where is the Fifth World Center in Africa?
From what I understand, it's one that will change. It will travel. Every few years, it will change locations.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. I wasn't sure if you knew more, but yes, Africa is a huge continent, and so they're looking to do something that does move around. So it would be interesting to visit when they get it settled in a spot, because I don't even think they have the first spot picked yet. My understanding.
I wasn't sure about that, but I know that with a little bit of luck, I'll be around to visit the Fifth World Center.
Mhm.
I'm sure
But I
you
may
will.
not be. But
That would be
anyway,
an amazing trip.
if
for
you're
sure.
young enough to do so, when they open it up, do so.
And then
I
Diana
think-
asks, oh, sorry, go ahead, Joan.
No. I think one of the biggest messages is to go, to embrace travel and to learn from others and get that global view of how people are so much like us. But at any rate, yes. Diana.
Yes. So Diana asks, Barbara, didn't you attend a Roundup or something like that? Where was it and what did you
I
do?
attended the 1959 Girl Scout Roundup in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I've attended the Roundup reunions. We've had our last one. We had our last one this last year. All of us are of that age. And it's just, don't expect any more of them, but had wonderful time visiting anything Girl Scouts.
Mhm.
I just can't, and I'll tell you, I cannot imagine life not being a Girl Scout. I've been one for so long and everything. Anything else?
That's all the questions, but I think you shared a story about the woman, oh, now I can't remember. I apologize.
Your friend that insisted on being a lifetime Girl Scout when that
Oh,
opportunity
you.
presented itself a number of years ago.
I became a lifetime member the year that the lifetime memberships were offered. One of my Girl Scout friends from the council I was at joined as a lifetime membership when it came. And she told us the reason she joined as a lifetime member was that she said someday the people in charge of, in my charge, might decide not to pay my membership fees because I was too old, to whatever, and it wouldn't be worth it. And she said, I would not be happy. So by joining as a lifetime member, I have guaranteed that I will die a Girl Scout. And I thought that was a good reason. So the next day I sent in my money and became, so that I have guaranteed that I will die a Girl Scout.
Well, Barbara, one thing we are assured, you certainly do live as a Girl Scout. We've encountered you at camp during our ACT sessions, our teas, and hopefully with all the events that we're looking forward to in the 110th anniversary of Girl Scouting, we will see you there too. So we thank you for your stories and your encouragement to travel, to be brave and get out there, but also to participate. Not only the World Centers, but happen to be in another international city, look them up.
Right. And by the way, I think, let's see, I know in Mexico, in I think all the countries, if you're traveling, you can make arrangements to stay at the national centers. It's a lot cheaper. For example, if you were going to London, if you made arrangements to stay at whatever it's called, anyway, to stay at the national center there, you're only 2 blocks away from the underground. And with the underground, you have all of London in front of you. And it's a lot cheaper to stay at these world centers than it is any hotel anywhere else. And so if you're going to go with a group of Girl Scouts, younger ones or adults, you can make those arrangements ahead of time to see about it, and it's much more affordable. It's easier to afford than it is going and staying in public house or public places. And they're just wonderful. The other thing that they did, at least in London, because I saw them preparing their meals, the girls that I saw there, they had the organization set out lunch meats and so forth that the girls then would use and pack their own lunches. So they had their own lunches that they could use there, which was, again, a lot cheaper than buying. I'm sorry, all of a sudden I can't seem to speak. But anyway, it made it very affordable for the girls or for adults to be able to
travel.
To travel. That's a good way of doing
it. But not only that, you have the opportunity of meeting other Girl Scouts.
Absolutely. We enjoyed every place that we went where there were other Girl Scouts. We enjoyed meeting. It was interesting when we were in Mexico, the group I was with, we were the first group for the New Year, and they have the girls, like senior scouts who are working there, that were planning the program and so forth. Well, they had this program planned, but nobody told them how old the group was that was coming. They didn't expect, they thought we were young girls. So they had to replan all their programs for us older people. It was fun. But the girls were wonderful. everywhere I've gone with the Girl Scouts, whether they're adults, girls, whatever, it's just been wonderful meeting them, talking to them, finding out about what scouting is like in their country and how much we have in common and where the differences are. It's just one big world.
We have a comment from Milan Ganaway in the chat room here, and she said that when I was looking for overseas Girl Scouts in Kuwait, I found the Kuwaiti Girl Scouts who invited my husband and me to be special guests at a big celebration where we were seated with the VIPs, including the woman education minister. Girl Scouts are welcoming everywhere, as Barbara pointed out.
That's wonderful.
And
that's wonderful.
Someone mentioned that it's Pax Lodge in London.
Thank you. There's two buildings there. One is Pax Lodge, and there's another one there that's in the same grouping. But Pax Lodge is the one where we would stay. And I did stay in there because, as I said, if you're traveling on your own, you can make arrangements to stay. And that's what I did a number of years ago with two other friends. We made arrangements and stayed, spending 2 days in London. And we made arrangements to stay at Pax Lodge.
Barbara, there's a question from Chris Thomas, and she asked if you have any daughters, and you may want to also answer about your travels with your granddaughter.
I have no children of my own, but I do have a granddaughter, and I got her into Girl Scouts here in Georgia, where she anyway, she's in with Georgia, and to have her a Girl Scout, there's no Girl Scouts in the town where she lives or nearby. So between my husband and I, and now my daughter-in-law and son, every other week, or twice a month, I should say, we travel 1 hour up to Nahunta to pick her up and bring her back to a Girl Scout meeting. And then when the meeting is over, we drive 1 hour back to Nahunta to drop her off and come home. But we do that because for me, it is so important that she be a Girl Scout as long as she wants to be. And she enjoys it because they don't have a Girl Scout troop or anything where she lives. So I would like to encourage her to travel someday when she is ready to travel.
What about Canada?
I would consider that. I just never went to Canada. Most of my international travel has been to South America. And part of it is because because of having lived there, I am very comfortable in South America with the Spanish. In fact, I haven't used a dictionary or taken one for years because I can get by with what I remember. And I just never thought about Canada, and I should have.
Diana asks, do you remember what year you became a lifetime member and how much it cost?
I could go look at my certificate. Do you remember?
Approximately.
Do you remember when that lifetime memberships were made available? I want to say about
the 75th anniversary.
My husband thinks it's about the 75th anniversary was
87.
Was in the mid 80s when lifetime membership became available.
Do you remember how much it cost at the time?
Nothing like it is now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't remember. I don't know if it was I want to almost say $100.
I think that's right. I think you're right. I think it was $100.
And it was $100 for the longest time. And then as prices increased, they realized they had to do something on the national level. Oh, and I see Chris Thomas says that lifetime membership started off at $100. And it's 300 and something now, I think.
Okay.
And our the service unit where I am, we give money to the girls who achieve the Gold Award. We give them money that applies toward their lifetime membership.
That's
Trying
great.
to encourage.
Diana asks, has Barbara been to Macy in New York?
No, never had a chance to make it there. For various and sundry reasons. I don't know why, but just the opportunity to attend one of their programs never came up, and they were all specialized, and I just wasn't in part of the specialized program arenas.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for today. We are approaching the 3 o'clock hour, and our program's coming to an end, and we thank you for your travels and your advice and your encouragement to travel. And as part of our thinking day, we just want to think about being part of this greater Girl Scout, Girl Guide movement around the world, the 10 million Girl Scouts and the 152 countries, with women and girls and women trying to make the world a better place. So thank you very much.
Well,
Betsy,
well, thank you. And I'm just sorry that I wasn't more smooth in my delivery.
that's no problem. Betsy, do you have any programming notes?
I don't think so. I think somebody asked if there was a badge or a patch for that, or for this program for girls. We did not design it to have a badge or a patch, but if you need help, reach out to me and I can help you make some programmatic connections if we have girls who are watching this. And I would also like to say that we've been trying to plan an adult trip to Arcabania for several years now as a council, but COVID, right? So look for that to come back. Hopefully we will get there. I want to go there. And now that I've heard even more stories about it, I want to go even more. So yeah, we're going to try to plan more trips now that we can travel a little bit more. Hopefully we can get out there more.
A side thing, I don't know
so much.
Yeah, I don't know if I said this or not, but the girls had planned a program for all of us and then found out the day we showed up that we were not young. And I saw them hurrying up and trying to redesign a program for us older people. But they were wonderful. I'll tell you, every scout I've come in contact with, whether it be in India, in Mexico, in whatever country, it's just been wonderful. And I think part of it is because we all share a same background. And thank you, Betsy, for making the arrangements for us.
Oh, absolutely. It was my pleasure. And thank you very much for sharing your stories and all of your inspiration to the rest of us. We really appreciate it. And there's a lot of thank yous in the chat too. So in case you're not seeing them, everyone's saying thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. You all have a good time and stay active.
Yes.
Stay active forever and ever and ever.
Good advice.
What do we do? Just
right.
hit the leave button now?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your afternoon.
How did we do?
Good.
Okay.
A couple people still on. I'm going to stop.